the Senior Special Assistant, Dr. Victor. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My pleasure.
Yeah, here on State of the Nation, and of course, let's start with the Infrastructure Master Plan that was approved yesterday by the Federal Executive Council. The role of infrastructure in national development. What are your comments and reservations?
Well, thank you very much for having me here. I'm always very happy and excited to come out here to share with Akwa Ibom people what their leader, the promise keeper, the uncommon transformer is doing in Akwa Ibom, and also what our own brother and son is doing at the national level, His Excellency President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. Infrastructure is a very critical aspect of what everybody is now talking about. Sustainable development, and interestingly, that was what I studied at my PhD level. I take a look at sustainable development, governance, and infrastructure. When I look at 100 and something countries, what I found in my studies was that if you really want to get sustainable development, you have to have good governance, and then you also have to have good infrastructure. And infrastructure can be seen in different ways, civil infrastructure, which is roads, housing, and so on, and the rail, the transportation, and then the electrical infrastructure, which include things like your television network, which you use to communicate. All those have electrical and electronic aspects. The infrastructure to build satellite, to build transmission, communication, studios, transmitters, and so on. And Nigeria is coming up in all of that. But the biggest one that we are focusing is the power, because without power you cannot industrialize. In some countries now we're actually moving towards using even power also to transport. Some rail systems are using power. So the establishment of a well-functioning power infrastructure is very, very critical to sustainable development that we are all clamoring for. Because there are two types of development. Some that are just development for development's sake, and that's what we saw in the past. Different government will come in, start certain projects, and they never finish it, and it's not sustained. So what we are looking at is to make sure this development are sustained, so that a different generation of children and grandchildren, like what is happening in the developed countries, and that's what countries are really called developed, because they've reached that stage that their development have become sustained. There's another angle of when people talk about sustainable development, which is more on the environmental aspect. We only have one Earth. We keep producing more children. China alone is about 1.something billion, and recently I noticed that India have outstripped China as the most populous country. But we only have one planet. Can everybody have the kind of lifestyle that people are enjoying in the Western countries in this one planet? That's another aspect of sustainable development. But for us in Akwa Ibom, in Nigeria, we are focusing on making sure the development is sustained over time. Once we reach that point, like what the advanced countries have also done, then we begin to think about, do we have enough resources to gather for all the population of the world? So infrastructure is very, very critical. Whether you are looking at sustainable development from the aspect of the planetary resources, or you are looking at constant development, you've got to have solid infrastructure. And as I said, today electricity is the most important. Electricity and gas is the cleanest and most reliable, most manageable set of infrastructure that is needed. And that's where I think in our state and in the national level, the governor and the president are focusing on.
Well, thank you very much. Still, the federal government also is the federal government is spending about 4.74 trillion proposal for next year.
Yes.
And of course, we will pass through tinkering in the National Assembly.
Yes.
Now, if we were to advise the National Assembly before the budget is passed, what do you think the priority of the country as we see the situation presently, where do you think the priority of the budget should tilt?
Well, quite honestly, as someone who knows public policy, security have to be number one. Security have to remain number one. This issue of Boko Haram have to be dealt with. You cannot have a country where people just jump in and balkanize your country and hoist your flag and all of that. So security have to be number one. From a government perspective, you'll be surprised. Education and health has to be next in line. Infrastructure, the roads, another aspect that have to be a priority. But when it comes to power and other infrastructure that can be done by private sector, I don't expect the state or the federal government to invest too much on that, because that's why you see the wave of privatization. Me and you were just talking about the telecommunication industry. Federal government will not be able to budget the kind of money private sector is bringing into telecommunication today. So with time, we are going to see the same kind of thing in the power sector. Private sector come in there, they put in the money because they have profit motive. We know in Nigeria, when you put budget in, you don't know how much of that budget is actually going for what you are expecting, what government is expecting. So I would say, security, because if we have a secure environment, investors will come. Education, because if we have educated people, investors will come. Health, because if you have healthy people, they will develop. And that's why you see His Excellency, our governor, has focused on those. Akwa Ibom is now very, very secure. And that's why we are having investors coming, asking us, wanting to come in. We also have free education. Our people are very well educated. The chairman of the Presidential Task Force on Power was here the other day, and he went to Ibom Power, which I'm running. And one of the things he was very pleased was that place is being run by Akwa Ibom people. So you need education. You need people that will be available to run these industries when you give them. And then you need healthy people. So to me, those are three critical things government have to worry about. People talk about stomach infrastructure and all of that. If you have health, have security, have education, investors will come.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's zero into power now. Federal government, there is a vision by the federal government to generate 20,000 megawatts of electricity in 2020. You are a stakeholder. You are in the sector. You are a team player there. How do you see this as being realizable? Is it feasible?
Definitely. Goals and strategies are very, you got to set them and then you push it to make it happen. For instance, nobody thought about going to the moon, or maybe they thought about it, nobody actually did it until President Kennedy said at a certain time we have to put someone on the moon. And the Americans went to work and they did it. So we should give the President Jonathan credit for coming out and saying, I want to get 20,000 megawatt by 2020. It's a goal, and we all have to work towards that. But more than being a goal, he has also set some processes in place that will make that to happen by privatization. Because once you privatize, people who are interested, today I just came back from New York, where we met with GE and people from all over the world. Nigeria is where people want to come, because we have those three things I'm talking about: education, and we have gas. Gas is very, very crucial. Nigeria have gas. Nigeria have educated people, and they have population. So the GE president says, "I'm coming into Nigeria." So when you have companies like GE, General Electric, which is a world leader in power infrastructure, saying, "I'm interested in Nigeria. I'm not going to India. I want to come to Nigeria." There's no reason we cannot reach that goal. I don't see any reason we cannot reach it. Even if we don't reach it and we are half of that, we get 10 megawatt by 2020. That's a significant improvement from where we are today, which is about 4,000 megawatt. But I believe the goal is doable. It's not going to be done by government, but I think government is going to provide the right kind of enabling environment. Again, I always talk of reference because that's where I'm more experienced, to Akwa Ibom. Look at what we did in Akwa Ibom. When His Excellency provided the right kind of environment, people came in and did the power, the plant, gas processing plant. Because we have that gas processing plant, I got a lot of phone calls. People who wants to come and invest in power. So I don't see any reason, if we do it right and make sure the gas is available, the GE of the world, the Siemens of the world, and other companies are going to come into Nigeria. Look at what the South Africans have done in the telecommunication industry. They came in with their MTN. Now they're plowing a lot of money out of here. And my thinking is to Nigerians who have money, no matter how you get the money, why don't you get in the power? Because that's the next place to turn your money into something, instead of taking it to a foreign bank account and putting that. To me, if you have the money, doesn't matter how you got it, bring it and let's get this goal of 20,000 megawatt by 2020. It's doable.
Now, if you are just tuning in, my guest is the Senior Special Assistant to the Governor, Power, Dr. Victor Udo. Is here to update us on where we are now as far as power generation is concerned, and our target, where we are targeting our Apugi, where Akwa Ibom, Wupo, and El Dorado. Dr. Udo, what is the state of IPP now, and what are the prospects? Where are we going from here?
Well, when this administration came in, IPP was I would say was a vision, was a dream. It had started, but when His Excellency came in, we finished the 191 megawatts, and over the years we weren't producing much. Perhaps there was some time we produced 50, 60 megawatt, but it was not steady because there was no gas, and when there was gas available, there was no transmission line. So what His Excellency did was to provide the right enabling environment for the gas company to come in. And since that gas company came in and started giving us steady gas since December last year, we've been producing steadily. And there was some transmission hitches too. We work with the TCN and fix that. So as I speak to Akwa Ibom people now, we are producing over 100 megawatt daily at Ibom Power. Ibom Power is running effectively, and like I said, it's being run by us, Akwa Ibom people. We probably have one or two non-Akwa Ibomite there, foreigner there. So the plant is running very well, and we are very proud of that. The power we are generating there currently should be able to supply the state, but the distribution infrastructure is not in place to evacuate all of the power, and we are also looking at working with the PHEDC to fix the distribution so that all Akwa Ibomite can have power. His Excellency's vision, and what he asked me to do was to try and give him a steady, power supply. He wants to see a good period of time before he leaves office where people can actually celebrate steady power supply. And I'm proud to say today, some part of the state, there are some part of the state, maybe like Eket, where you have up to 20 hours a day. Some even goes for a week without power outage. So we are happy about that.
Yes, let me comment there, because I also acknowledge that there is improvement in the power sector, and my friends being in Eket and all those axes have told me that there is steady power supply. Then I want to find out, because power is divided into three components: generation, distribution, and transmission.
Yes.
Where do you have the problems, and why is it so, and what are you doing to get these things off so that the whole state can feel the impact?
Yeah, the reason we have more improved power in Eket is because we have a transmission substation there. It's not owned by the state. It's a federal government or TCN substation, and the infrastructure around Eket is a little bit better than the old city like Uyo, where TCN and PHEDC have not invested as much as we would want. When it comes to generation and gas, because the power sector has a big chain. You have gas, you have generation, you have transmission and distribution. Generation, I'm pretty comfortable now. Gas, I'm pretty comfortable. Transmission, the only problem we have with transmission is that it is not properly managed or operated. And I'll be in Abuja, I'm going to have to make a strong case about that. Because right now, the people that come in, if we have any problem in any of our substations, and we have 3 of them in Akwa Ibom, we have Itu, we have Calabar, we have Itu, we have Uyo, and then we have Eket. People come all the way from Calabar to maintain those. So I'm going to make a case that they should station the TCN people here in Akwa Ibom State. So that's one of the things that I'm looking at doing. On the distribution side, His Excellency have done a great job, because chances are any village you go today, if not 90%, you will see distribution infrastructure. But these things are not being operated effectively. So what I'm looking at is to see how we can work with PHEDC to make sure once we install these transformers, they're operated effectively. Those are the things we are working on. I think if we do that well, and PHEDC and TCN cooperate with us, Akwa Ibom is going to be a model of what the president is trying to do at the national level.
That means that we have more problem on the distribution area.
Definitely.
And that the state government is doing more in terms of transformer than the private companies.
I'm sorry to say, since we did the privatization, I know other distribution companies are trying. They're investing in meters, they're investing in transformers. In Akwa Ibom, PHEDC have not done much investment. As a matter of fact, I meet with the operators once a month. They don't even have the basic tools. They don't have vehicles. They don't have things like ladder to even climb the pole. So there are so many difficulties, and
they're not
it's not
ready
excusable
for the privatization exercise. They're not ready.
But it's a little bit
In terms of
complicated.
logistics.
Yes, it's a little bit complicated because when the new owners of PHEDC came in, they saw things on ground that perhaps they were not happy with, and they probably don't have the funds immediately. They will argue to make immediate changes. The argument is that people are not paying, and people's position is, how can I pay when the power is not steady? And I think what I'm looking at, I'm going to have a meeting with the PHEDC, the CEO and MD there, with the National Electricity Regulatory Commission, next week, because I'm going to have to challenge them. You cannot be a private sector and you expect people to pay when there is no service. You've got to give them service, and if they don't pay, then government will see why people are not paying. But people are saying they're not paying. And then the other thing that they're not doing right is they're not metering. You cannot estimate forever.
Yes.
It's excuse for they've been in business for the last 6 months. That's understandable. They're getting their footing. But for how long would you continue to give people estimated bill? People are very educated these days because of what telecommunication have done. Someone would not argue or fight over airtime. If they want to make a phone call, they buy their charge card and put it there and make the phone call. So we gotta work together with PHEDC to make sure people have prepaid meters. Because if you put a prepaid meter there and it's functioning right, and you put the right infrastructure to make sure nobody tampers with it, someone wants to consume, he buys the charge card and put it there. When it's finished, it's finished. No argument, no issues. So I think there's a lot that needs to be done. A whole lot that needs to be done. That's what we call operational excellency. That's not here at all, and that's something we need to introduce into the system, both at the transmission and at the distribution level. The gas, the private sector people, Sector Energy and Frontier Energy, they're doing a good job. The distribution of the generation at the Ibom Power, those boys are doing a very good job. So we just have to work on the transmission and distribution.
Okay, now you've spoken about tariff increase and all that. Is there not? Don't we have a regulatory policy so that systematically we graduate from one stage to the other, rather than outrageous on
bills.
Estimated bills?
Well, the regulator is very much on the side of the people, because what happens, electric business is a natural monopoly. You cannot have two people distributing power in a given franchise area or a given region. So to be able to make sure it is competitive, that's why state government, federal government established regulatory agencies. So the regulatory agencies have to put the right service quality, the right amount that you should pay. And in fairness to PHEDC, they don't determine the rates. It is the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission that determines the rates. They also determine the service quality. And that's why they will tell you, if you have problem, call them. And as we speak, this meter issue, one of our brothers here, very, very influential person in the sector, one Dr. Etim from Ikotepene, is working with NEC to make sure. I know there are so many, I understand there are many people who have even paid for meters, and those meters were not given to them. So he's working very hard with NEC to make sure people get the meters. And then when you get your meter and you are in a given rates, you have to pay. Because once they show you consume this, you're gonna pay it. Or if you don't pay, they will have to disconnect you. Just like if you don't pay, you can't use your phone.
Okay, somebody wants to know from here whether the power we are enjoying in Akwa Ibom, is it from IPP or
It's a good question. That's another thing I know is there's a lot of misunderstanding. People don't really understand the difference, the working. So PHEDC doesn't do generation at all. They don't own generation. All they do is, what they're supposed to do is to make sure people are connected to the grid. That's their job, and run that very well and collect the bills. They don't do generation. So all the power, to answer his question, all the power that we are receiving today in Akwa Ibom is from Ibom Power. And more is even going to the grid because we are not able to evacuate as much as we want to evacuate here in Akwa Ibom.
Yes, another person also wants to know what are you strategizing that as a professional? You are a professional in that sector. What are the arrangements you have made to train other Akwa Ibom youths to stabilize and take over?
That's a very good question. As we speak, we're a small company and we are not getting the kind of revenue we're supposed to get. We actually have at least 15 people right now that we are training. And I'm not going to say that's big enough, but that's not too small either for a small company like us. So we bring in people to give them exposure, and it's through industrial training. So we have that going. But the federal government is actually doing more, and people need to key into the opportunities that are available at the federal level. So whoever is asked that question, there's opportunity, much more bigger opportunity at the federal level.
Okay, at the federal level.
Yes.
Now, at least from your analysis,
yes,
you are of the opinion that power is better to be in the hands of the private sector.
That's correct.
Than the government.
That's correct.
Then what of generation? What of generation? I know it's a very complicated
thing.
Area, and it is not as rewarding as distribution.
Yeah.
And transmission.
Well, actually, is a transmission that is more difficult.
Yes, transmission.
Yes, transmission that is more difficult, which is why the federal government wants to expand on it, wants to clean it up. And what the president decided to do was to bring in people from Canada to help us fix it. There is also an opportunity if someone has the money and wants to take the risk to expand the transmission capacity in the country. There's some incentive for that. But at the end, like it's done in other countries, especially the United States where I practice, most of the power sector is run by private sector. The federal government gives them the right kind of enabling infrastructure, the kind of incentive. So they invest in the generation, they invest in the distribution, and they invest in gas, they invest in transmission. And they also invest in people training to make sure they operate that infrastructure. Because it's one thing to build infrastructure. Once you don't maintain and operate it effectively, it won't give you the result that you are looking at.
Like with the visuals that we're watching, that is the position of the independent power plant now.
I think what they're showing there is actually E2 substation.
Okay, substation.
And I want to tell you some of the things we are doing. When I came in as the MD of Ibom Power, we were not able to evacuate all of our power because there was a big limitation at E2.
Okay.
You know, we couldn't send the power to E2. We couldn't send power to the national grid. It was always tripping our unit. So what we found out was that there were some things that TCN should have done at the E2 substation, which they didn't do. And since we fixed that, we actually worked with them. We put the money in to fix it. That's what you are seeing there. Since then, we've been evacuating more than that's E2 substation. Since then, we've been evacuating relatively much higher than what we should have done if we didn't do it. What they're working on there is called current transformers. Okay. What they do is to those things there allow us to measure the power that comes in on the grid and know when to open the circuit breaker or when to close it. But that was not working, and so it was stripping our unit very often, and we weren't able to evacuate past you. So we worked with them to replace those things, and since then, and that's also in the spirit of what His Excellency is doing in roads, you know, because if the roads are not good, it's our people that are not going to travel, and that's why he spend money to fix the road. So we're also spending money with TCN to fix the transmission system, which is almost like the big road network. It's the electrons network that links, like that substation link us with Aba, with Calabar, and with you. And it's very, very, very critical. So we fix it, and it's working right now.
Well, somebody wants to know here, senior special assistants, what are those strategies that you've put in place to monitor deficiencies of the power holding companies and all, so that they can report back to you to take adequate?
That's a very good question. What I've done, what my office does, as alluded to earlier, I meet with the operators once a month. So like last Tuesday, they were all there. There was a time that the BMs, the business managers, were not responding very well. And unfortunately, I'm not trying to be discriminatory when I say this. At the weekend, they were always going back to their different states where they belong, where they come from. So we insisted that they should post Akwa Ibom people. And we are happy they responded. The guy that is running AKBC is an Akwa Ibomite. The guy that is running Korepene is an Akwa Ibomite. The guy that is running Uyo is cooperating with us very well. So that's something that we've done. We bring them in every month and discuss with them what their challenges are and what we can do to help them. So that's what I'm doing. And I also have in my office, I have one engineer for senatorial district. So they're talking to those people, finding out what the problems are. That's why I'm able to say authoritatively that they don't have the tools, don't have the resources, and we are trying to help them. Because at the end, if we get steady power supply in Akwa Ibom, investors will come in. People will stop going to Ghana. They will start coming to Akwa Ibom. So it's in our best interest to make sure power stabilizes and we have a steady power supply.
Now, how do you think that the federal government, where do you think that the federal government should come in to facilitate, to expedite, so that we can have a steady power supply?
Well, the main thing we are asking for the federal government is three things actually, and we just finished the first inaugural National Council on Power recently, and I had 2 memos there that I submitted. And the first thing is for them to pay the debt they owe us. It's just like His Excellency fixing the road. The money we use in fixing the road are money we could have used to do other stuff, but they are federal roads, so they have to pay us that money. In Akwa Ibom, we've also spent money to do a lot in the power sector that is supposed to be a federal government. So my first thing is, please pay us what you owe us, because if you pay us that money, we can use it to do other stuff. The second thing is, fix the transmission, because there's a line from Aba to Itu that needs to be reconducted, that needs to be expanded. So we are asking them to do that. The third thing I'm asking them to do is to have an operating center, TCN operating center in Akwa Ibom. You can't expect people with a bad road to be running all the way from Calabar to come and maintain 3 substations in Akwa Ibom State. That's another thing I'm asking them to do. If they do that, and also I'm asking them to open up more transmission lines and transmission substations. For instance, in Oron, we don't have any major transmission line. We have one in Eket. The big one is being built in Korepene. Another one is being built in Ikorabasi. We need to open up the Oron axis also. So that's another thing I'm asking them to do. And good enough, we have some of our people at the federal government. I met one lady and one young man at the Federal Ministry of Power who are from Oron. So I'm working with them to make sure we at least put some federal presence in the power sector in Oron. The other thing the federal government can do is to encourage ExxonMobil and others to make sure the gas that we have in Akwa Ibom is really processed properly, so other investors will come in. Because if we have gas sufficiently, for instance, the methanol power plant, the methanol plant that we just commissioned, it's going to require a lot of gas. They can consume all of the gas that SSA Energy is producing now. So we want federal government, the Ministry of Petroleum, to encourage people to come in and process our gas, even the one that is being flared on the offshore. Let's pipe it and bring it to onshore so people can use it to do useful work like power plant, methanol plant, and other processing facilities that is needed.
Well, with all the efforts and what you have seen in place, when are we expecting a steady power supply in Akwa Ibom?
Well, I mean, since I joined the administration, we've always said as soon as possible. And to me, that's a good way to put it, because if I tell you 2 years from now, you say, oh, your administration is ending. You know, if I say 6 months from now, you say, can you really do it? So I think as soon as possible. His Excellency is committed to that. What he told me was that he would like to see a period of time that there is steady power supply. And I believe if I can figure out a way to work with PHEDC and TCN, the generation is there, the gas is there. I don't see why we cannot do it. Now, is it going to be everybody having 24 hours every day? That's not possible anywhere in the world. Even in the United States, there's always some people, some customers that are off certain times. So our goal is to make sure majority of Akwa Ibomite get steady power supply 24, 18, 20 hours, 21 hours, you know, every day. And that's what I'm working hard to do.
Okay. Now, as you are rounding up, what's your message to the stakeholders the private sector, team players in the power sector, government, and the people?
Well, let me start with the people. People have to do two things. They have to make sure the infrastructure we've put in their communities are not vandalized. They have to protect those infrastructures. That's critical. Second thing that our people need to do is to pay the bills. If you consume electricity, you gotta pay the bill. There's no two-way around it, because it's not a free electricity like your telephone. It's not a government-given thing anymore. So you have to pay the bills. Those are the two things I have to tell the customers. The investors, Akwa Ibom is ready for investment. You know, we have gas, we have transmission line. People should come here and invest. You know, that's very, very simple. And the enabling environment is there. AKBC is there to support. Rural development is there to help make sure everybody is connected to the grid. The Bureau of Technical Matters is there to help us make sure we enforce the right kind of standards. My office is there to answer questions, to help people. Ministry of Work is helping us to make sure when we build new roads, new infrastructure are in place. So I think, like I said, Akwa Ibom is really a model where you can see the working of the private sector and the government working together. And we should give a lot of credit to His Excellency. And also, I mean, it's a political season. We got to consolidate on this. We got to build this up. We got to make sure this is sustained over time. We got to make sure that it continues. We got to make sure, as we decide on who we put to replace His Excellency, we put the right person in place that will build on these things. So that's the kind of thing I would like to share with the Akwa Ibom people, with the youths, with women, with all the stakeholders. Let's make sure this thing continues. We don't want to go backward as a people. We want to go forward. The same thing goes at the national level. We need to allow the president to come back and finish what he has started, because we never know who else will come in. If he comes in and doesn't have the same vision, you know, because there is a lot of things. He had to fight a lot of people. There were people who did not want him to privatize. There's a lot of interest. The cabal is there. Exactly.